I thought this holiday season would be normal. I was wrong. My name is Victoria Lane, and the moment I walked into my parents' house, I realized I wasn't family to them, I was their free solution. Stay with me, because by the end of this story, you'll see how one woman finally stopped being everyone's ATM and took control of her life. I got the call at 2:30 a.m., my phone vibrating insistently on the nightstand in my tiny Brooklyn apartment. It was my mom sobbing over FaceTime. "Victoria, we never see you anymore. The kids are asking for you. The whole family really needs you here," she cried. Her voice was desperate, and for a moment I almost believed her. Almost thought this holiday could be different. After a grueling 9-hour flight from New York to San Diego, 2 layovers and a neck stiff from sleeping upright, I arrived at their house. My suitcase was stuffed with gifts for my nieces and nephews. My back ached, and I smelled faintly of recycled airplane air. I rang the bell, silently hoping for a hug, the kind I used to get as a child. The door swung open. No hug, no warm greeting, just my mom staring at my suitcase. "You'll take care of the kids while we go on this trip," she said, as if it was routine. My brother Liam appeared behind her wearing a hoodie, carrying a duffel bag, kids clinging to him. "Careful, kids," he said, smirking. "Don't drool on Aunt Victoria. She just flew cross-country." Everyone laughed, my parents. My brother, the kids, like I was a punchline. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. Something inside me clicked. I smiled, put my suitcase down, looked my mom straight in the eye. "No," I said, one word. Just one, and the room froze. The laughter stopped. My mom whispered, "No, that's impossible. To understand why, you need context." For years, I had been their invisible bank account. When Dad needed a new car after his surgery, I paid. When Liam overspent on his tech startup, I covered his debt. When the water heater failed, when the mortgage was late, I sent money all while living in my tiny Brooklyn apartment, scraping by, barely covering my own expenses. 2 weeks before that 2:30 a.m. FaceTime, my mom had already sent screenshots of a luxury resort, implying, "Just this once. We need your help." Every favor began that way. This time I paid attention. Every transfer, every screenshot, every "I'll pay you back later" text. And I noticed the mortgage. I was a co-borrower, covering shortfalls for years without realizing the full weight. My money had been the foundation of their lifestyle, while they painted themselves as struggling victims. I almost said no. I almost told them to handle it themselves. But then a thought hit me. If they were willing to drag me across the country to babysit and cover their bills, I was finally willing to show them what happens when I stop playing along. I booked my flight, but I also booked a call with a financial advisor, downloaded 3 years of statements, and drafted a simple legal document. I wasn't just Victoria, the exhausted daughter they were about to meet. Victoria, the woman taking her life and money back. When I stepped into that house, smiling, suitcase in hand, letting the kids climb around me while Liam scrolled his phone, I was ready. The switch had flipped, and nothing would ever be the same. You might think one word couldn't stop a family in their tracks, but that no was just the beginning. In the next part, I'll show how I turned their dream holiday into the last time. They saw me as a free solution, and how years of hidden debts came crashing down. I followed the kids into the kitchen while Liam dumped his duffel bag on the counter, scrolling through his phone like nothing had changed. My mom, clutching a glossy brochure for the resort, beamed. "See, Victoria? The kids stay with you. We'll finally have a real vacation. You always say we should take care of ourselves." I glanced at the brochure. Luxury resort. Spa treatments, private tours, everything they had already booked and everything I had unknowingly paid for over the years. My stomach twisted. My own life had been on hold. Every paycheck funneled into their crises while they pretended to struggle. I took a deep breath. "Before we go anywhere," I said calmly, "we need to talk about money." Liam groaned. "Seriously, Victoria, now?" My mom gave me that wounded look, the one that had worked for years. "Honey, we've been under so much stress. Can't we just enjoy a vacation for once?" I didn't raise my voice. I simply opened my laptop and clicked to the first folder labeled Harbor Household Transactions. Every line was dated, color-coded, and brutally clear. I scrolled slowly so they could see. March 2023. Mortgage 2 months late, I wired $1,300. June 2023. Liam's business maxed out his credit card. I sent $2,700. August 2023. Water heater replacement. $950. And it kept stacking. Streaming services, grocery deliveries, Uber Eats, holiday gifts, car repairs. I highlighted each one as I spoke. Their faces went pale. Liam's jaw dropped. I'll pay you back next month, he stammered, voice cracking. My mom clutched the brochure tighter. Victoria, this isn't fair. You're making us look bad. I shook my head. I'm not making you look bad. I'm showing you what actually happened. I scrolled to the bottom, bolded the total. 58 and 430 in the last 36 months. The room was silent, the air heavy. My dad, who had been leaning against the counter, sagged into a chair. My mom whispered, "No, that can't be right." I slid a printed stack of documents across the counter, placing them beside the resort brochure. "This," I said quietly, "is a simple agreement. It's not a lawsuit. It's just a record that all of you acknowledge. You owe me this money and we'll start paying it back." Liam flipped through the pages, eyes wide. This is insane. We can't. Then start paying attention to what running a household actually costs. I replied, "If you can afford resorts, flights, and spa packages while I'm expected to babysit and bankroll your lives, you can afford to sit down with a bank and figure it out yourselves." My mom flinched like I had slapped her. "Victoria, you wouldn't humiliate us like this." I met her gaze steadily. "I'm not humiliating anyone. I'm stepping out of a role you wrote for me without asking. You wanted a vacation? Fine, but it won't happen at my expense anymore." I pulled up the resort confirmation on the laptop. Their faces froze when they saw the status. Cancelled. 3 days ago, I called the resort an airline. The bookings were made with my card, from my account. The package has been refunded, the flight credits transferred. "You canceled everything?" My dad barked. I didn't flinch. "Yes, without me there is no vacation. Not without my money. Not ever again." The room was still. The kids looked confused. My parents and Liam stared, color drained from their faces. For the first time in years, I felt a quiet sense of control, a strange mix of fear and relief. They laughed at me at the door, thinking I was just a delivery of gifts and babysitting hours. But the moment I opened that laptop, the dream vacation evaporated, and that was only the beginning. In the next part, I'll show how I exposed the mortgage scam and made them face the full consequences of their choices. After the shock of the canceled vacation, the room remained silent, thick with tension. My dad, who usually commanded the room with his booming voice, looked small, powerless, almost afraid of the numbers on my screen. Liam shuffled in his chair, avoiding my gaze, while my mom clutched the now useless resort brochure like a lifeline. I opened a new tab and displayed an email from the bank, addressed to both my name and my parents. Names: Victoria Lane and Henry Lane co-borrowers. My mom gasped. "Victoria, you can't. It was just paperwork. We said it wouldn't affect you." I swallowed the familiar ache in my chest, the one that came from being blindsided by their lies for years. "You told me it was a formality, but I've been covering shortfalls every month. Every time a payment was late, it hit my credit too. Every time you forgot a bill, I was the one bailing you out." I clicked a button, and a video call popped up from my financial advisor in London. Calm, measured, professional. "Hi, Victoria. Is now a good time?" I tilted my laptop so my family could see. "Perfect," I said. "This is the person who helped me understand exactly what being a co-borrower means and what I can do now that I'm done covering your debts." My dad hissed, "Who is this?" "This is the person who's telling you the truth," I said without looking at him. The advisor explained step by step how the mortgage was legally my responsibility as much as theirs, how missing payments affected my credit, and how I had the right to request removal as a co-borrower. If they couldn't qualify a loan, the property might need refinancing or even selling. My mom shook her head violently. "You can't do this. We can't afford a higher payment." The advisor's voice remained calm. "That is between you and the lender. Victoria is not obligated to remain a co-borrower on a loan she is not benefiting from, especially when she has been covering your shortfalls." The words hit them like ice water. I leaned back, watching them absorb the reality. This was no longer just about a vacation. It was about the very foundation of their household, built on my labor and money. I reached into my bag and pulled out a formal letter. "Notice that I'm stopping all automatic payments for the mortgage and shared accounts. The bank will contact you directly from now on," I said. "I'm closing all the joint accounts. Utilities, streaming services, groceries, everything stops." My mom gasped. "But that's where the grocery money comes from. How are we supposed to manage?" "The same way every adult does," I replied. "With your own income, your own budget, your own consequences." Liam finally spoke, panic in his voice. "Victoria, Can't you just give us some time? I'll work extra hours, sell my old tech gear. Just don't pull everything at once. I looked at him steadily. You're 36 years old with 2 kids. You should have been managing your life years ago without relying on me as a safety net. The softer, caretaker part of me wanted to relent. I wanted to apologize. To say I'd reinstate one payment, just to stop the fear in their eyes. But then I remembered how they had laughed at the door, treating me like a punchline, a delivery driver for their conveniences. That part of me died right then. I clicked through each autopay, one by one. Mortgage, utilities, groceries, streaming subscriptions canceled. Confirmation emails pinged. My mom's breathing grew rapid. My dad slumped further into his chair, and Liam stared at the floor, stunned. I packed my laptop and suitcase. If you decide to tell anyone I abandoned you, I said quietly, remember, I have every receipt, every bill, every transfer. I am done being the villain in your story. I walked to the door, Victoria Lane finally free from the role they wrote for me. They thought I was their built-in solution, someone who could make all their bad decisions disappear. But as soon as I exposed the mortgage, autopsies, and hidden debts, their comfortable lives started crumbling. In the next part, I'll show how the aftermath of that night forced them to face the reality of their finances and what they did when the bills actually hit them. The next morning, the house felt smaller, heavier. My parents moved through their routine like ghosts, shuffling through the kitchen, pretending everything was normal, but it wasn't. The kids, blissfully unaware, ran around in pajamas, spilling cereal and giggling at cartoons. I watched from the doorway, arms crossed, letting the silence do its work. By mid-morning, the first letters started arriving. Not emails, not calls. I'm talking physical letters with official stamps. The bank, the utility companies, even the mortgage lender. Each one confirming what I had just told them. From now on, Victoria Lane was no longer responsible for their accounts. Any late fees, overdue balances, or refinancing issues were now fully their problem. My mom's face drained of color as she picked up a thick envelope from the counter. They can't do this, can they? She whispered. I didn't answer. I simply watched as she sat down and slowly, trembling, opened the letter. Liam hovered over her shoulder, peering at the page like it might magically fix itself. My dad paced near the back door, muttering under his breath. This is impossible. We've been living on borrowed time. It wasn't just the bills. The truth of how much they had been relying on me finally hit them. Streaming services? Canceled. Groceries? No automatic top-ups. Mortgage? They had to come up with a plan themselves. The lifestyle they had maintained for years, brunches, boutique shopping, weekend getaways, was suddenly unaffordable. Liam finally muttered, almost to himself. I had no idea it was this bad. No, I said, my voice calm but firm. You chose not to see it. Every time I sent money, every payment I covered, every emergency I fixed, it was a band-aid on years of irresponsibility. You built your life assuming I'd always be there to make it possible. The room was quiet except for the kids playing in the background. My dad finally stopped pacing and leaned heavily against the kitchen counter, jaw tight, fists clenched. Victoria, you're punishing us, he said. I shook my head. No, I'm protecting myself. I'm done being the invisible safety net for your bad decisions. My mom's eyes welled up. But what about the kids? The vacation? Everything we planned? I met her gaze. I'm not responsible for your vacation. Not anymore. And not for anything else you've been pretending I owe you. The impact of that statement seemed to sink in slowly. The first tears I noticed were hers, not the manipulative, loud sobs from our FaceTime call weeks ago, but quiet, raw, and honest. For the first time, she was seeing what she had done, how she had relied on me for everything, without ever considering the cost to me. Liam sat down at the counter, finally taking off his sunglasses, rubbing his face. I guess I need to figure out how to pay for things myself, he admitted, voice small. Exactly, I said. This is your life now. Time to see what running a household really costs without me covering every mistake. The rest of the morning passed with a strange tension. A mix of fear, disbelief, and the first inklings of accountability. Bills were sorted, schedules recalculated, and for the first time in years, my family had to face reality without me as a buffer. And through it all, I realized something profound. I wasn't just protecting my finances. I was reclaiming my life, my peace, and my autonomy. The resentment, the exhaustion, the constant guilt, everything that had weighed me down for years was finally lifting. The letters, the canceled payments, the spreadsheet, it was just the beginning. In the next part, I'll show how my parents started scrambling to rebuild their lives, and how the cracks I exposed forced every lie and secret they had hidden for years to the surface. By the end of the first week, the calm of the holidays had evaporated. The Miller, or now Lane house, was in full panic mode. Phones constantly ringing, envelopes stacking up, and urgent emails from banks and utility companies filled every corner of their kitchen. The comfortable illusion they had lived in for years, pretending my money would always cover their mistakes, was gone. My mom paced with a reusable grocery bag swinging in her hand, each step heavy with frustration. Liam had moved his laptop onto the dining table, sorting spreadsheets, tallying bills, and muttering curses at numbers that refused to add up the way he wanted. My dad, well, he sat in the corner scrolling through his phone, still pretending the world would fix itself, but even he could see the cracks forming. I, on the other hand, was calm. For the first time in a decade, I was the observer, not the fixer. I sipped my coffee in the corner, silently taking note of their frantic energy, the panic that had always hovered behind their laughter at my expense. Liam finally looked up, eyes red-rimmed. "Victoria, I sold some of my old tech stuff. Picked up some extra warehouse shifts. We're really trying." I nodded. "Good. You should see what running a household really costs. No short-term fixes, no magic transfers. You can live within your means or face the consequences, your choice." My mom was sitting at the table now, the brochures for the canceled vacation scattered in front of her. I didn't realize how much we were relying on you," she admitted quietly. I thought you were okay with helping." I shook my head. "I was okay with helping once, maybe twice, but not as a full-time bailout. You used me like an ATM for years, and now you're finally seeing what that looked like from my side." The kids, oblivious to the tension, ran in and out, dragging toys across the floor. Yet, even they sensed the shift. Liam didn't have a spare $200 for an emergency Uber anymore. Mom couldn't magically order groceries or pay bills on autopilot. Every choice had a real cost, and for the first time, they were paying it themselves. That night, my mom sent me a text. "Victoria, I'm scared, but I see it now. I don't know how we'll manage, but we're starting." I didn't respond immediately. I sat on my couch, watching the city lights through my window, thinking about how years of invisible labor had finally come to an end. It wasn't cruelty, it was boundaries. And boundaries were something my family had never had to face. Then came the minor victories. Liam moved his kids into a smaller room to save on rent. Mom started listing unused designer items online. My dad had to negotiate with the bank himself for a short-term repayment plan. The comfort and extravagance they had taken for granted started disappearing in real time. And with each small adjustment they made, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and relief. For years I had been walking on eggshells, juggling their expectations and emergencies, always trying to keep their world afloat. Now they had to learn the hard way, and I could finally breathe. They were scrambling, panicking, and facing reality in a way they never had to while I was their financial safety net. But this was just the beginning. In the next part, I'll show how the social fallout began, how my father tried to rewrite the story online, and how I stayed firmly in control without losing my peace. About a week after I pulled the plug on the autopays, my phone buzzed. It was my friend Emma sending me a screenshot. My dad's Facebook page was plastered with a long, dramatic post about ungrateful children abandoning their family right before the holidays. He never mentioned me by name, but the message was clear. "Pray for us. Our daughter flew in from London, and instead of helping us, she left us with nothing." Comments poured in: neighbors, old friends, distant relatives. Sympathy, outrage, suggestions to start a GoFundMe. Each one twisted reality, painting me as the villain. I paused for a moment, feeling that old familiar pull, the urge to respond, to defend myself, to prove the truth. But then I thought of the spreadsheet, the bank emails, the receipts lining my laptop. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. My story wasn't for public consumption. It was for me, for my peace, for my boundaries. Liam texted later that day. "Dad's posts are making things worse. Mom and I are trying, but I think they're scared. You did the right thing." And he was right. I had done the right thing. I wasn't punishing them. I was reclaiming control of my life. Their online narrative didn't matter, the numbers did. The proof of years of bailing them out, of being treated like a built-in ATM, was irrefutable. Over the next few weeks, I watched from a distance. My mom sold designer bags and home decor, listing them online. Liam downsized his apartment, moved the kids into one room, and picked up extra shifts. The fancy truck my dad had bought after knee surgery, repossessed. The house he and my mom had tried to maintain on borrowed money was now facing reality. Each small adjustment was a reminder. They could no longer rely on me as their safety net. And with that, my peace grew. I wasn't running their lives anymore. I wasn't paying for their mistakes or covering their debts. I was finally free. And in a quiet, empty condo in downtown San Diego, I realized something crucial. Boundaries hurt at first, but they heal. I was no longer a prisoner of guilt, a fixer of chaos that wasn't mine. I had a life that was mine alone, one where I didn't have to hide my exhaustion behind a forced smile. Their chaos wasn't over, it was only starting. In the next part, I'll show how Victoria's family began to scramble to survive without her money, and how each decision they made forced them to confront the truth they'd been avoiding for years. By mid-December, the reality of running their household without me hit my family hard. Liam's texts were shorter, panicked, and often sent in the middle of the night. Bills went unpaid. Late fees stacked up. The fancy brunches, weekend trips, and boutique shopping sprees were gone, replaced with stark budgets and uncomfortable conversations. My mom called me one evening, voice shaky. "Victoria, we're trying. I sold a few things, got a second job for the weekends, but it's not enough." I listened quietly, not offering a solution. For years, my advice had come with a price tag on my sanity. Now it wasn't my problem. My role wasn't to fix or fund their lives. It was to protect myself. Across town, Liam was dealing with reality in his own way. He had downsized the kids' bedrooms, moved them into one shared space, and had begun meal prepping to save money. Each text he sent me reflected his slow awakening to financial responsibility, something I had been trying to teach him for years. Meanwhile, my dad posted more vague complaints on social media. But I didn't react. I didn't need validation from strangers. I had my proof: spreadsheets, receipts, bank statements. I had reclaimed my autonomy, and no amount of online drama could take that away. The turning point came when my mom walked into my condo, standing quietly in the doorway. She looked smaller somehow, not physically, but emotionally. The full-face makeup was gone. Hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail. She held a bag of small items she had sold, a check inside. I did it, Victoria. I sold some of my things. This is from the sales. It's not everything, but it's something. I smiled, a quiet, measured smile. That's a start. That's the first time in years you've faced this head-on. She sat on the edge of my couch, letting the tension release in small, broken sobs. Not the loud, manipulative crying from the FaceTime call weeks ago, but real remorse and recognition. "Dad, he still says I betrayed him," she whispered. "He tells everyone I turned on my family." I nodded. "Let him. The proof is here if anyone asks. You've seen the numbers, the emails, the transfers. You know the truth. The rest is his narrative to manage his guilt." For the first time, I realized something powerful. I wasn't just reclaiming my finances. I was reclaiming my life, my peace, and my voice. I could choose when, where, and how. I engaged with my family, and it no longer included being their unpaid banker, their emergency babysitter, or their silent enabler. Over the next few weeks, the adjustments became permanent. Liam took on a second job, reorganized his life, and faced reality with grit rather than avoidance. My mom sold luxury items she didn't need and faced budgeting with a newfound awareness. My dad's social media rants continued, but they no longer reached me. I had muted, blocked, and moved on. And me? I decorated my condo slowly, a small, cozy space that reflected my choices, not theirs. The fairy lights, the secondhand couch, the tiny Christmas tree, it all symbolized my independence. For the first time, I didn't feel guilt over money I had earned, time I had spent, or energy I had given. I was finally free. With my family finally confronting reality, a new challenge emerged. Could I truly maintain distance while still loving them? Or would guilt and old habits threaten my hard-won independence? In the next part, I'll show how Victoria navigates this delicate balance and takes full control of her life. Christmas Eve came, but it was nothing like the chaos I had expected. No frantic calls, no last-minute transfers, no demands on my time or my credit card. I sat cross-legged on my second-hand couch, the tiny tree twinkling softly beside me, a cheap mug of cocoa warming my hands. For the first time in years, I wasn't running someone else's life, I was living my own. My mom had come by earlier, small but earnest, delivering a check from the sales she had managed and standing quietly while I accepted it. She didn't beg, she didn't manipulate, She simply acknowledged reality, and that acknowledgement was worth more than any sum of money. I can't make up for all of it, she said softly, voice trembling. But I see now. I see what we put on you. I nodded, letting her words settle in. That's enough. Boundaries aren't punishment, they're protection. For me, and eventually for you too. Across town, Liam was finally keeping up with bills and childcare without my intervention. He texted updates not to ask for money, but to share progress. Small victories that didn't involve me footing the bill. He had learned, painfully but effectively, what responsibility really looked like. And my dad, his social media posts continued, but they no longer reached me. I had blocked him, muted the notifications, and stepped out of his narrative entirely. He could tell the story he wanted. I had mine, one built on proof, independence, and peace of mind. That evening, as snow lightly dusted the city streets outside my window, I reflected on the journey. For years, I had been invisible, a financial crutch, a silent fixer. But setting boundaries, cutting off autopays, and reclaiming my autonomy wasn't cruelty. It was self-preservation. I poured myself another cup of cocoa and glanced around my little condo. Fairy lights strung in uneven lines. A tiny tree with 3 mismatched ornaments. The glow of the city below. Every choice here reflected me, not my family's expectations. And I realized something profound. Family doesn't disappear when you say no. Those who truly love you will adjust to boundaries, even if it takes them time. Those who only loved you for what you could provide will crumble the moment you stop being their safety net, and that's not your responsibility anymore. My phone buzzed with a simple text from my mom later that night. Thank you for showing us the truth. I'm proud of you. I didn't reply right away. I just held the phone, took a slow sip of cocoa, and let myself feel a thin, quiet layer of peace settle over me. The debts I had covered for years, the emotional labor I had silently carried, the guilt I had endured, they were all mine to release now. And for the first time in my adult life, Christmas didn't feel like a trap, a responsibility, or a negotiation. It felt like mine, my own. Boundaries had brought me freedom, and freedom felt like home. Sometimes the hardest thing you can do for your family is say no. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do for yourself is walk away from being the unpaid savior. And sometimes letting them face the reality they avoided for years is the only way to reclaim your life and finally find peace.